My son called me on a Sunday afternoon, and before he even asked how I was doing, he told me I should sell my house. Mom, I sent you a link, Daniel said. It's a retirement community outside Bozeman. Take a look. I had just pulled an apple pie out of the oven. A retirement community? It's nice. Meals, transportation, nurses if you need them. You wouldn't have to worry about the property anymore. I looked through the kitchen window at the yard I had spent the morning cleaning up. I'm not worried about the property. Daniel sighed. You're 71. 4 bedrooms and almost 5 acres is a lot for one person. Then he started listing all the reasons the house was supposedly becoming too much for me. The roof was getting old, snow removal cost money, property taxes had gone up, and the yard took a lot of work. I finally asked, Daniel, why are we having this conversation? That was when he admitted that he and his wife, Melissa, had found a house they wanted. They were short on the down payment. About $80,000 short. The market is good right now, he said. If you sold, you could put enough aside for yourself and still help us. There it was. I told him I was not selling. He kept talking as though I had not answered. You don't need that much space anymore. I still live here. I know, but realistically, Mom, you're not going to live there forever. I paused. No, Daniel. I'm not going to live forever. That doesn't make my house available. He said I was taking it the wrong way. We ended the call a few minutes later. 10 minutes after that, my daughter Rebecca sent a message to our family group chat. She deleted it almost immediately. Not fast enough. I saw it. Don't push her too hard yet. We still don't know what Robert left her. If she thinks we only care about the house, she could leave everything to Hannah. I read it twice. That was when I understood this was not really about whether I could handle the stairs or mow the lawn. My 2 oldest children had already started talking about what they expected to get when I died. And apparently, they thought I was hiding money from them. The following Saturday, Daniel and Rebecca showed up together. Rebecca brought coffee and donuts. Daniel carried in 2 bags of groceries and made a point of telling me he had picked up several things I liked. We sat on the back porch. Rebecca suddenly wanted to know how my knees were doing, whether I ever got lonely out there, and if the stairs had started giving me trouble. Daniel excused himself to use the bathroom. He was gone for nearly 12 minutes. I did not think much about it until that night. A few months earlier, after several homes on our road had been broken into, a neighbor helped me install 2 indoor security cameras. One of them covered part of the hallway. Before bed, I checked an alert from that afternoon. Daniel came out of the bathroom. Instead of returning to the porch, he went into my bedroom. I watched him open my nightstand, go through the closet, and pull 2 storage boxes from under my bed. Then he walked into my office and started going through the file cabinet. At one point, he took out his phone and photographed a bank statement. I replayed the video because I kept thinking there had to be some explanation I was missing. There wasn't. The next morning, I changed the lock on my office. I moved my passport, property deed, will, and financial documents into a safe deposit box. Then I called my attorney, Sarah Klein. I had known Sarah for almost 20 years. After I explained what happened, she asked what I thought they were looking for. I told her I believed Daniel and Rebecca were convinced my late husband had left me money I had never told them about. Robert was my second husband. He was not Daniel, Rebecca, or Hannah's father. By the time Robert and I married, all 3 of my children were adults. The house had already been mine for years. I bought it 35 years ago after divorcing their father. It was old and needed work, but it gave the children and me something we badly needed at the time, stability. Hannah was 6 when we moved in. She sat on the front steps holding a stuffed rabbit and asked, "Nobody can make us leave this house, right?" I told her no. Years later, Robert moved in. He had once owned a small building supply company, and I think Daniel and Rebecca heard the words business owner and imagined wealth that simply was not there. Robert did all right for a while. Then he got cancer. 3 years of treatment took care of most of what remained after he sold the company. When he died, there was no secret fortune. There was a modest retirement account, an old pickup truck, some tools, his wedding ring, and a home equity loan with just over $31,000 still owed. Daniel and Rebecca did not know the details because they had never shown much interest in them. During Robert's final months, Daniel visited twice and Rebecca came once. Hannah drove 3 hours almost every weekend. She brought groceries, helped around the house, and sometimes stayed at the hospital so I could go home and sleep. After Robert died, I sold his truck, rented the workshop behind the garage, and started doing bookkeeping again for 2 small businesses. Hannah found out I was struggling with the loan and put $9,000 toward it after I refused to accept the money directly. I paid every dollar back over the next 2.5 years. Eventually, the house was debt-free. Somehow Daniel found out. That was when the questions started. At first, he wanted to know what Robert's life insurance had paid. Rebecca asked whether any old business accounts were still open. Before long, both of them were asking about investments and suggesting Hannah might be helping me manage money they did not know about. They had convinced themselves there was a secret account somewhere. There wasn't. 3 days after I found the camera footage, Daniel sent me an email. The subject line was, "Mom's housing and estate options." He had looked up the estimated value of my house and land. He had compared retirement communities. He had even calculated how much money he thought I would need for the rest of my life. His proposal was simple. Sell the property. Set aside $120,000 for me. According to Daniel, that amount, along with my Social Security and retirement income, should be enough. Everything else could be divided among my 3 children. Beside Hannah's name, he had written, "Possible reduced share due to previous financial assistance from Mom." I stared at that line for a long time. Hannah had helped me. Daniel had somehow turned that into an argument that she deserved less. I did not respond. 2 weeks later, a woman I had never met pulled into my driveway. She introduced herself as a real estate agent. Daniel had asked her to come out and give a preliminary market estimate. I told her the house was not for sale. She looked embarrassed and apologized before leaving. I called Daniel immediately. He acted as if I were making a problem out of nothing. It was just an estimate. You sent a real estate agent to my home without asking me. We need to know what it's worth. He went quiet. Then he said, "Mom, you're going to sell eventually." "No. I'm going to die eventually. Selling is optional." He did not like that. He told me I was being difficult. Then he said, "You're 71. Realistically, how many more years are you even going to live there?" I knew he would later say he had worded it badly, but I understood exactly what he meant. I asked whether he and Rebecca had already been discussing how long they expected me to stay in my home. He accused me of twisting his words. I ended the call. A few days later, Rebecca came over alone. Her approach was softer. She talked about Daniel's financial problems. His rent had gone up, the children were expensive, and Melissa wanted a home of their own. Then Rebecca mentioned that her husband's contracting business had been slow too. "We're not trying to take anything from you," she said. "We just don't understand why you wouldn't want to help your children while you still can." I asked what she wanted. She suggested giving Daniel the Eastern Acre so he could build there someday. "And you?" She smiled. "Maybe the West Side eventually." I asked what Hannah would get. Rebecca shrugged. "Hannah's doing fine." That told me a lot. Because Hannah had handled money responsibly, they thought she needed less. Because Daniel and Rebecca were struggling, they believed that somehow gave them a stronger claim to what I owned. Nobody seemed especially interested in what I wanted. I told Rebecca I would not be giving either of them land. She looked around my kitchen and asked, "What do you even need all this for?" It was a strange thing to hear about the home where I had spent most of my adult life. That evening, I called Sarah. "I want to change my will." My old estate plan was simple. After my death, everything would be divided equally among my 3 children. I had written it 10 years earlier, long before Daniel searched my bedroom or Rebecca started discussing which part of my land she wanted. Sarah asked whether I wanted to leave everything to Hannah. I said no. Hannah had not asked for any of this, and I was not going to make her responsible for the fallout. So we made a different plan. After my death, The house and land will be sold. None of my adult children will inherit the property directly. Most of the proceeds will go into trusts for my 5 grandchildren. The money can be used for education, medical expenses, or help with a first home. A smaller portion will go to a local non-profit that helps older women remain safely in their homes. I also appointed an independent trust company to handle the estate. Sarah asked if I was sure. I was. I did not tell Daniel or Rebecca. I hoped things would settle down. Instead, 2 weeks before Christmas, they came over for dinner. After we finished eating, Daniel opened his briefcase and placed several documents on my kitchen table. One was a power of attorney. Another dealt with transferring portions of my land. Daniel called it a compromise. He said taking care of things now would make everything easier later. Rebecca added, "You wouldn't really be losing anything." Apparently signing away part of my property did not count as losing it. I pushed the papers back. "I'm not signing these." Daniel looked irritated. "You haven't even read everything." "I've read enough." He told me they had already talked to someone about the documents. I said, "So have I." That got their attention. I told them I had changed my estate plan. Rebecca immediately asked, "You gave the house to Hannah?" "No." "Then who gets it?" "The property will be sold after I die." I explained that most of the money would go into trusts for the grandchildren. Daniel stood up. "You'd rather give the money away than leave it to your own children?" "The grandchildren are my family too." He said Hannah must have talked me into it. I told him she knew nothing about the decision. Then he asked why I would do something like this. So I took out my phone. I opened the security recording and placed it on the table. Daniel watched himself walk into my bedroom. Rebecca watched him open my drawers. Neither of them spoke while the video showed him entering my office and photographing my bank documents. When it ended, I picked up my phone. "This was not one misunderstanding," I told them. "I said I wasn't selling, and you kept pushing." Daniel searched my things. "You sent a real estate agent here. Then you started talking about dividing the land, and now you're sitting in my kitchen asking me to sign part of it away." Neither of them answered. At some point, I had to believe what you were showing me. Rebecca started crying. She said I was ruining the family over money. I told her the money had never been the real problem. The problem was what they were willing to do because they believed they had a right to it. Daniel shoved the papers back into his briefcase. Before he left, he said, "When you get old enough to need somebody, don't call me." That hurt. Of course it did. He is my son. But I also remembered Robert's final months. Daniel had already shown me how much help I could expect when things became difficult. I did not argue with him. I wished him good night and closed the door. Neither Daniel nor Rebecca came for Christmas. Hannah arrived with her husband and children that afternoon. She brought dinner from a restaurant in town and stayed afterward to help clean the kitchen. Before leaving, she asked if I had really changed my will. Daniel had called her. "He's furious," she said. I asked what she thought. Hannah pulled on her coat. "It's your house and your money." Then she smiled. "Honestly, I hope you spend most of it before any of us get a chance." I laughed. It was the first time the whole situation had felt funny in months. The following spring, I replaced the roof. I repainted the back porch. I bought new tires for my car. Then I booked an Alaska cruise. I nearly cancelled before making the final payment. Spending that much money on myself still felt irresponsible. For most of my adult life, extra money automatically meant tuition, weddings, emergencies, grandchildren, or something one of my children might need later. It takes time to stop thinking that way. But I eventually realized I had spent decades preparing to leave something behind and very little time asking what I wanted to do while I was still here. Rebecca called a few months later. The conversation was polite. She asked about my garden and whether the new roof had held up through winter. After about 20 minutes, she finally asked whether the grandchildren were still included in the trusts. I almost smiled. "Yes," I told her. Then I added, "My relationship with your children is between me and them. Whatever happens between you and me is separate." She was quiet for a moment. Then we changed the subject. Daniel and I speak occasionally now. We are civil. Things are not what they used to be. I still love both of them. That part never changed. What did change was my understanding of what love requires. Loving your adult children does not mean letting them make decisions for you, and saying no does not mean you love them any less. Just because they want something I own does not make it theirs. I may sell this house someday. I'm 71, and I know there may come a time when 5 acres, snow, stairs, and a long driveway are more work than I want. If that day comes, I'll make the decision myself. For now, I still cook my own meals, drive my own car, pay my own bills, and wake up every morning in the home I chose 35 years ago. For most of my life, I worried about what I would leave my children. These days, I'm trying to spend a little more time thinking about the life I still have. Whatever is left afterward can wait until afterward.